Ariel, you're hands down the GOAT of MMA journalism. It's been that way for a very, very long time. As someone aspiring to break into the game and stay half as long as you have, any tips and how do you do it? Because you're like a madman. You run shows on YouTube and then you're back to Spotify, back and forth with the Ringer. Like, how do you do it? And any tips for guys like us?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. There's actually six of me, so that's how I'm able to do it. No, I don't know, man. I think I got my work ethic from my dad. He was a crazy worker when I was growing up. Thank God he's still alive, but I would witness him like leave home to go to work at 7 and come home at 7 and work till 10 and then go to sleep and do it all over again. And I think ultimately when you love what you do, you're going to be pumped to work, and it doesn't truly feel like work. So um, it's a fun sport to cover. I would urge you, if you want to be an MMA journalist, to go in and become one, because there's a lot of great opportunities. It's still a young sport that's in its infancy. And I feel like it's a sport where there's a great amount of opportunities to talk to fighters. You don't have to go through teams and a ton of PR people. Like, you can hit up someone right now and there's a chance they may reply to you. I mean, that's how I started. I used to hit people up on MySpace and they would reply to me. And it was incredible. Like, after a while, it was GSP and it was Chuck Liddell and it was Tito Ortiz. It was all these people who were, replying to me. I was like, holy crap, this is 2006 when they were huge stars. So, just go for it, be professional, reach out to people. Don't, honestly, one thing that really helped me early on was anytime I had an interview with someone, like let's say I was talking to GSP for the first time or Chuck Liddell for the first time, kept them long. I always kept them for like 15, 20 minutes because I wanted them to remember that, like, hey, this guy didn't take a lot of my time. I'm going to have him, next time he reaches out, I'll do the interview with him. And you keep building up that trust. So little tricks of the trade, but it's a very fun sport to be a part of and to cover. And I would urge anyone, if they want to be an MMA journalist, to go for it.
As a father, just real quick, how do you balance that with the family life?
That's a tremendous question, my man. Yeah, I don't even know if I have the answer to the question just yet, because I still feel like I don't do a great job of shutting off. Like, I would love to shut off at 6, right? But as you know, the news never sleeps. They don't care about my timeline or my schedule or your schedule. Like, it just happens. I think I've gotten better at it. And I think that my kids and my wife have actually saved my life. And what I mean by that is, I'm a very obsessive person. I'm a very intense person. I'm a very impulsive person. And I think that by having balance and by having kids and by having perspective, which kids bring you, and balance that they bring you, and, distractions, like you can't be sitting at home and looking at Twitter all night, and you can't be scrolling through Instagram because your kid needs a bath, or your kid needs to eat, or your kid needs help with homework. And so I actually think that if I was single with no kids, and I could have easily gone down that path because I was so obsessive by my job, thank God I didn't, I think I would be a lot unhealthier in the head and in the spirit and in the body and the mind. So the kids actually help me take breaks. They help me perspective. They help me gain balance. And so, yeah, so it's actually not as hard as one may think, but you do have to work at it in terms of not letting the job consume you.
Yeah, so speaking on that, you said you're a perfectionist, and this is obviously what you love to do. So how would someone like you cope with messing up? How do you put something like that behind you and just keep moving forward?
By the way, it's a sweet shirt that you're rocking. Go
Thanks. That's my
Knicks.
boy, Mello. Shout him out.
Melo's my guy too. I was in Syracuse, by the way, when they won the national championship in 2003. So
Yeah.
I've always backed Melo, and I've never appreciated the Melo slander. And I was very excited when they traded for him, and he'll always be an all-time great in my mind. Yes, I have been very hard on myself. I've never done a show where I was happy with my performance. I've always been upset. I've always been hard on myself. I've always said, "Oh, you freaking idiot. You blew it. You messed up." I've always been just annoyed. And that's probably not the best thing, but it's also probably been like an engine for my career, like to try to do better, to try to do better, to keep on going, to keep on going. So I don't know. it's a thing where you try your best to be perfect and you try your best to be as good as you can be, and you try not to be too hard on yourself when you do mess up, because I feel like I mess up every single time I do a show. I mean, I'm literally off a show right now talking to you guys, and I feel like I messed up, and I'm mad at myself. I'm mad that I messed up, and so I don't know. I've been doing this a long time now, and I'm no grizzled veteran, but enough years, over a decade, and I still haven't had that one show, that one interview, that one whatever where I was like, "You nailed it, great job. There's nothing to be mad at." I hope that day comes, but I haven't found it yet.
Yeah, it's just about learning from your mistakes and keep going forward. And Melo,
That's right.
he's one of my favorites of all time. I got 3 jerseys. This one, I got another Knicks one, I got an OKC one, and I just got a Syracuse one. So
Oh,
that's my boy.
sick. The OKC years were a little weird,
Yeah.
but not as weird as the Houston years.
Or the Hawks. He played for the Hawks for like 12 hours,
Oh, that's
I think.
right.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Well,
gosh.
he didn't actually play for them, right?
No,
Did he
I
play
don't
a
even
game?
think he made
No.
it to Atlanta.
Yeah.
They just shipped him to Houston.
So disrespectful.
Right. That's right.
UFC champions and the compensation beef with the UFC has been long documented. One of the latest controversies or situations now is Francis Ngannou and Dana White and UFC brass. Can it be a reality that we see Francis leave the UFC, come the 22nd if he loses to Cyril Gane, and does he have the star power to carry another organization like Bellator or ONE?
Well, if he loses, he's a free agent.
Yeah.
And he would be able to leave, but the UFC can match any offer. If he wins, he has to stay till the end of 2022, which is still interesting. What if he's still the champion by the end of 22? Champion or not, he'll be able to leave, and that's something we've never seen before. So this is super interesting stuff. By the way, what if he loses like a split decision where he deserved to win, those kinds of decisions, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, now he can leave? Like the guy that everyone still considers a champion? I don't think it goes down that way, that fight, but that could be a real, like, those judges have a lot of pressure on their shoulders come January 22nd. So, yeah, it's a really interesting situation. Does he go to a Bellator? I don't think it makes sense. There's not, I mean, who's there for him to fight in Bellator, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense, but I think boxing would be something that interests him. It's definitely something that he's talked about in the past. And I think even if he loses a super close decision, who wouldn't want to be in business with Francis Ngannou? Who wouldn't want to sign him?
Yeah.
From
Tyson
one
Fury
to
had that tweet a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So I think even if he loses, the UFC is actually going to try and re-sign him, and I think if he wins, they're definitely going to try to re-sign him because they don't want him to walk away with the belt. So it's a really interesting time, and maybe this changes the business. I don't know. I mean, things need to change in the business, and fighters need to get paid better, and all that stuff that I talk about all the time. But we've never quite seen a situation like this where a champion has the ability to potentially walk away as champion.
So going forward, we saw that unfortunately Max Holloway had to back out of his fight against Volkanovski. And I was just wondering, from your perspective, who do you think would be the best person to fill in? We've seen Henry Cejudo talk, Qatar is big, Korean Zombie. Who do you think would be the best matchup?
Well, I would love to see the Cejudo matchup, but it appears as though they're going to go in the direction of the Korean Zombie, Chan Sung Jung, on April 9th. He's a fan favorite. Volkanovski really wants to fight him, so I think that's the direction they're going to go. But I would love to have seen the Cejudo matchup because it's historic seeing a guy go for a third title. Giga's out there. He's fighting this Saturday. I don't know if he's quite there just yet, but other than that, I think it would be incredible if Cejudo went out there and,
Yeah, how wild
and fought.
would it be if he came back, won another belt, and then left
Oh
the
my
gloves
God.
on the mat?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And the UFC doesn't seem to want it. The UFC doesn't seem to want, a situation where a guy goes in there, wins another belt, and now all of a sudden vacates the title again, and they have to scramble to find a new champion. And I don't blame them, to be honest, because that creates a mess and it devalues the title.
Happened with your guy GSP.
Yeah.
It happened with my guy with GSP, and all of a sudden, he moved up, and they thought they had a deal that he would defend the title against Robert Whittaker if he beat Michael Bisping, and then he said he didn't want to, and it's kind of unfair because GSP did get sick. He got colitis, and I don't know if they leave him, whatever the case may be, but I think they learned a lot from that situation and said, hey, remember GSP tried to fight Khabib afterwards, and they're like, hell no, we're not going to do GSP versus Khabib because we're not going to want someone to walk away with our lightweight title if he wins. There's a chance GSP can win. So I think they learned a lot from that situation.
Without bias, who wins that dream matchup between the Eagle and GSP?
At what weight?
Your weight?
Yeah,
what weight? That's a good question.
Because if it's at 155, then I would favor Khabib. If it's at 170, I would favor GSP.
That's fair.
Okay.
I guess you both in there. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I want to ask one more question. I meant to ask this along with the first question I asked you, because I actually had a situation with Eric Anders where things kind of went the wrong way after I shared my opinion after his disqualification recently. But how do you balance keeping the relationships with fighters after interviewing them and when to turn Helwani on them?
Well, I don't turn Helwani on like the relevant people. It's all the people, people who are trying to poke me or start a beef with me. Like, look, I'm not going up and walking up to fighters or tweeting fighters who I have respect for every single man and woman that does this profession, that competes in this sport. And I've never been the disrespectful type. But there is a point in my life where it's like, man, I'm not going to let someone incessantly lie about me, bend the truth, come after me, poke me, etc. And so you see, I mean, there's a theme with the people that I'm 10-7ing, if you will. And when it comes to like active fighters and stuff like that, I wouldn't dare, unless someone's like being truly disrespectful. And I love when people are like, hey, you wouldn't say that to their face. Like, first of all, like fighters aren't the type of people who just go around beating people up on the street. Like, they're not Neanderthals, number one. Number two, I have been the one to go up to people and say things to their face and then maybe say something in the show and then go up to, like, I've always been that guy. So I don't know what they're talking. They must be new to this. But I have the utmost respect. Let me be very clear. I have the utmost respect for all the men and women who compete, but I'm not going to let someone disrespect me time and again and think that they can get away with it. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care who you are. And you make it personal and you start talking about my stuff. Like, listen, I would love it if we got, to a point where like these Twitter beefs are nonsense. I roll my eyes at them all the time. I'm like begrudgingly getting involved, but some people they're begging for it. So Helwani, I should say, has to come out.
Like, I saw your tweet the other day talking about Dylan Dennis and him begging for followers and trying to get his clout up so he can make some money. And what is your perspective on people pushing that hard to try to get a fight with somebody like Jake Paul, or just trying to get paid and doing anything they can to gain clout?
It's embarrassing sometimes.
Yeah, you said it. I think there's a jealousy component. I think there's a component where they're just trying to get a fight, and this is the best way that they know how to do it. I think social media changes people. It's not the best way. It's not what the fans want to see. Fans want to see authentic rivalries and authentic beefs and all that stuff. And listen, I've told Dylan privately that I don't think he's going about his career the right way. He has his opinions. I have my opinions, and that's cool. He could do whatever he wants, and I wish him the best. And I think that if he can get healthy, he could be a draw in this game, but I don't agree with how he's been behaving. And I'm sure there's a mental health component to it all because he's been injured and he's probably frustrated that he can't get back in there. But like, why are you picking a fight with me? Why are you calling me names? Why are you talking about my family? Why are you doing this and that? And, take that energy somewhere else. Oh yeah. Yeah. He makes references to my wife and stuff like that. And I don't stand for that shit. So
no.
Yeah, that kind of actually, I was going to piggyback off you, Spencer, because, they say Colby Covington, he's playing a role. Obviously sounds like Dylan Dennis. That's not the case. This guy's just kind of immature.
Yeah. Colby, I think Colby has become the gimmick. Colby's not a big fan of mine now as well, which I think is interesting. If you're playing the heel and you get mad if someone criticizes you, then what kind of a heel are you? Like when you're playing the heel, you should be welcoming the criticism, right? But listen, I think people love to talk about my quote unquote beefs. I've been doing this 15 years. Think about all the fighters that have come and gone. There's probably thousands of them at this point, and you could probably count the beefs on one hand. And I know they always get a ton of attention, but when you think about it, like the percentage is actually pretty great. And considering the personalities and considering how hostile it can be and how heated it can be, I am proud that I have been able, for the most part, to stay as professional as possible and not let them get to me.
That's why you're the GOAT.
That's just what I was going to say. That's why you're the GOAT, man.
Can I ask this one real quick, too? Because obviously guys aren't going to punch you in the face. You go to jail for that. You're not allowed to do that. But there is one guy you had a situation with who is a little bit out of his mind, in Mayhem Miller, and that awkward exchange that you guys had. What were you feeling in that moment, and has there been anything else like that before or since then?
Well, with Mayhem, I was confused because we always had a great relationship, and it didn't feel like he was all there in that moment, and unfortunately, his story has really taken a turn for the worse. So I was a little confused. I never really, honestly, I never have really thought that anyone was going to hurt me or hit me or anything like that. They understand the power that they have. And I think for the most part, they understand like what could happen. So, knock on wood, you never run into a situation like that. No one should ever be put in that situation. There have been some tense moments here and there with Nick Diaz, with Rampage and these guys. The funny thing is, like, I have great relationships with all of them now, every single one of them. So, there's factors that come into play, weight cutting, there's a lot of tension leading up to a fight. There's anxiety, there's things like that. So I try not to take it too personally, and I try not to let it get to me. But that was a weird one because like there was equipment involved and he was getting in my face and it was super intense.
Climbing on the desk and
yeah. It's crazy that people, like we're approaching 10 years since that moment happened, like 9 years in September. And then it's crazy how time flies and how it still resonates with people and people still bring it up. It also reminds me that I'm getting a little bit old. But I will always have a very soft spot in my heart for Mayhem, and I hope that he is able to turn around his life.
So getting back to Colby Covington, he just accepted a fight. Well, they inked a fight with Masvidal. And I was just wondering what you were more excited for, the Masvidal-Covington fight or Izzy Whittaker 2?
I think Izzy Whittaker 2. I'm really curious about that fight. I actually just spoke to Whittaker, so this is good timing because I had him on my show on Wednesday night, and I really liked what he had to say about the first fight and the mistakes that he made in the first fight and his ego getting involved and kind of harming his performance, and how he's learned from that, and how he had a hatred for Izzy the first time they fought, and this time he won't, and how he learned from the Jan Blachowicz fight that there's sort of a blueprint to beat Izzy a certain way. So, and I just think the stakes are higher, and Izzy has never lost at 185, and Whittaker looked so great since that loss. So I would have to say that fight. I think that fight is a bigger fight, and I think it will be a closer fight than the first time they fought.
Yeah, I actually agree, because as much as I love Jorge, Colby's style or the wrestling style that he can put on him kind of makes it maybe not an exciting one. With Whittaker, Izzy, especially, I listened to that interview, by the way. Whittaker doesn't seem phased mentally at all, anywhere near what he was before, because there was this drummed up fake beef, and everybody speaking on them causing trouble between Australia and New Zealand with it too, and he just doesn't seem phased by it at all.
Yeah, I really liked his demeanor, and he's a very mature guy and a level-headed guy and a grounded guy. I don't know if, listen, Whittaker on his best day, I think could beat Israel. I don't know if Israel's on his best day if Whittaker can beat him. You get what I'm saying? Like, if he catches him on the wrong day, then yeah, there's definitely a chance. I wish this fight was happening in Australia or New Zealand. That would be sick. It's a shame that it's happening in Houston. Houston's always a great crowd, but obviously it would be much better in a stadium over there. So a bit of a bummer, but yeah, I feel like we haven't, obviously it's been a while since we saw Izzy. It was June. It's a pretty long layoff for Izzy. And I think he's one of the biggest stars in the sport. And one of the best fighters to watch. I mean, he's never in a boring fight. Even the Vettori fight was interesting to me, even though it went, 5 rounds and was pretty one-sided. So I'm really looking forward to that.
So who do you have your eyes on coming up in the UFC? Who do you think is going to be the next big star? Maybe not in the next year or so, but that's really building a case for themselves to push to stardom.
There's several people that come to mind. I mean, Ian Gary, I think, is a big star that's on the come up. A guy that they just signed, Mohamed Mokaev, is a big star, potentially to come. Islam Makhachev, I think, can be a champion by the end of the year. Khamzat Chimaev could be a champion at the end of the year. I think Usman still hasn't really scratched the surface on how big he can get. I think Ngannou hasn't scratched the surface on how big he can get. Honestly, I think there's a lot more room to grow there as well. I think Rose can even be a bigger star. I know she's champion, but I think she can even be a bigger star. There's a fighter named Marina Rodriguez at 115 who is really good, that has potential to be a champion too. Yeah, those are a few names that come to mind. Yuri Prochaska, 205. So,
yeah,
those are some names to watch out for.
Do you believe in your Bills this weekend? They had a loss to the Jags. The season wasn't the prettiest.
Yeah, it wasn't the prettiest, and they were going through some tough times, and they lost 3 of 4, and they did lose to the Jags, and they did lose to the Colts, who aren't in the playoffs, and they did lose to the Bucs on the road, and they did stumble against Tennessee Titans, and they did lose to the Steelers in Week 1. But guess what? They're the AFC East champs, back-to-back, Jack. They're on a winning streak. They're looking good. They're at home, and I love the revenge factor. The whole damn sport said that they were done after that Monday night game. Belichick walked in there and he was like, oh yeah, Mac Jones, we're going to just throw the ball 3 times and we're going to run on you guys and blah, blah, blah. And they had to listen to that crap, and they had to listen to every pundit who never watches a game talk about how they were done. Well, what happened? You saw what happened. They went to Foxborough, They got it back. And now for the first time in Buffalo Bills playoff history, we get to face the New England Patriots. And you know what? You wear that New York Knicks jersey. I don't know if you were a fan back in 1994, but this reminds me a lot of 1994. Michael Jordan was playing baseball and the Knicks were playing the Bulls, and they had to get over the Bulls to get to the finals. It was second round, so somewhat similar to this. And I know Jordan wasn't there, and I know Tom Brady wasn't there, but it feels like they need to exercise, or isn't there. I feel like they need to exercise these demons, these Patriot demons, once and for all, to fulfill and realize their destiny as Super Bowl champions in February. So I couldn't script this any better. I can't wait for Saturday night. Bring Bill Belichick, bring all the game plans, bring all the run game, bring all the tricks, bring that never was, never going to be Mac Jones to Orchard Park on Saturday, and you'll see what Bills Mafia has in store for the New England poser Patriots.
I got to do this real quick, Spence, because he's on fire right now. Can you holler at all the jabronis that haven't subscribed to the Woodward Heavyweights podcast yet? Can we get a
man
from Helwani?
Listen to me. If you're not subscribed to the Woodward, what is it? Give it to me again. Give it to me. Woodward what?
Woodward Heavyweights. This is episode 1, the inaugural. We had to bring out the GOAT for it.
And you got to bring out the big guns. If you are not subscribed to the Woodward Heavyweight podcast, get it right. No, I didn't get it right. Let me tell you something. If you are not subscribed, Woodward's. Let me do this again. If you are not subscribed to the Woodward Sports Heavyweight podcast, you are a 10-7 jabron. You are a never was. You are a never will be. You are someone who cannot even breathe in the same air as Helwani, because Helwani doesn't go on any kind of jabroni beaten show out there. Helwani goes on the number 1 heavyweight show out there. These two guys, they pay me a lot of money to say this. I just want to let you know.
I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thanks so much.
No problem, guys. Thank you for having me, and good luck to you guys.
Thank you.